Hey, everybody. Very excited. Thank you so much for coming and welcome to the second to last meeting of the Quantum Ethics Reading Group. I'm very excited to introduce our speaker, Zeki Seskir, who's been a close collaborator of the Quantum Ethics Project since day one, and I'm very happy to have him here today. He's going to be discussing his recent paper, The Democratization of Quantum Technologies. Zeki, you should have the ability to share your screen.
Yep, and let's try the slideshow. Can you see the slides changing?
We can, I believe so.
Okay, perfect.
You can see your screen.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. If you, yes, please. All right, Zeki, take it away.
Okay, thanks, John, and thanks for the invitation, and thanks for all the lovely people at the room and online together with us. As advertised, I'm Zeki, and today I will talk about our kind of recent paper, Democratization of Quantum Technologies, with Steven Umbrello, Christopher Koenen, and Peter Famas. So this paper is a collaboration between our group at ITAS, so Institute for Technology Assessment and Systems Analysis at KIT, and the group of Ethics and Design at TU Delft. The outline of my talk today, which I believe it will be quick and so that we can have more time for discussions. I will briefly talk about quantum technologies, some background information on the paper, some theories of democracy in different value contexts, three narratives and counter-narratives, some discussion and conclusion, and some shameless self-advertisement in the end. If you have any questions regarding the paper, you can either reach me or Steven through these emails, and also please don't hesitate to contact via Discord. So John asked me to very briefly also introduce myself. So what I did was to list my involvements. I have a bachelor and master's degree in physics with a focus on quantum information science. I was doing my PhD in quantum networks, but then decided to switch topics to more societal impact and ethical, legal, societal aspects kind of research and technology assessment. I have a second master's degree in science and technology policy studies, so some of the things that I say might look very economical in certain aspects. That is due to my policy studies background. And currently I'm a doctoral researcher at Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, Institute for Technology Assessment and Systems Analysis, short version is ITAS. I'm a project coordinator here at QTech, so our project is called QTech. If you're interested, just let me know. I was also a co-founder, a coordinator, and currently an advisor of Q Turkey, a grassroots organization in quantum technologies in Turkey. As of end of 2022, I am relieved of my founder and coordinator duties, but I'm still kind of an advisor there. And also I'm a member of Q World, Quantum Humanities Network, Quantum Ethics Project, and some other smaller initiatives. So I like to be active in this field and primarily focus on kind of what we can call transdisciplinary research. So it's like research involved with other activities. And if also you're interested in connecting, just feel free to add me on LinkedIn. So I'm open to, communications. That being said, let's start. I suspect all of you are kind of familiar with what quantum technologies is, but just for completeness sake and to make sure that we are speaking about the same things, when I use the term quantum technologies, I am generally referring to these four pillars: quantum communication, quantum computation, quantum simulation, quantum sensing and metrology. This is the European flagships framework. The US framework combines the computation and simulation part, so it has three pillars, but basically we are talking about the same stuff. All of these are, of course, built upon the basic science, which is sometimes referred to as quantum information science. The entire thing is sometimes referred to as quantum information science and technology, or quantum science for short. And why we should talk about quantum technologies in a societal, manner and aspect and impacts? Well, the first thing is the field has been growing rapidly in an academic, manner and size. The total number of articles has been increasing, almost quadratically since 2000s. The number of patents and patent families has also been increasing rather rapidly in the recent years. So a lot of people kind of argues that we are at an inflection point for these technologies. This is, of course, up for debate, and it's really difficult to project these kind of events, what may happen in 10 years. But the general consensus is that right now these technologies, or at least the science behind these technologies, are mature enough so that we can, go forward with this mindset of taking it out of the labs and into the markets for societal benefit and use. This is, of course, just a single narrative. There are also competing narratives with this, but we can discuss these in the end. Of course, when we are talking about commercialization, one thing to look at is the number of startups and the startup ecosystem. And in a, again, relatively recent paper, we kind of did that. We looked at the number of pure quantum startups globally, and the one thing that we have observed is that there was a peak in 2018, and since then the number of new startups, although these last points should not be taken so seriously, because lots of the startups are unknown, or they have very very limited digital footprint to be found if they are recent startups. But here you can see that there was, again, similar to the number of publications and the number of patents, there was a rather steep uptake, and then it kind of plateaued. And if you look at the regional distributions of these startups, we can see that the US and European Union have almost the same number of startups. Of course, these values should have certain error bars, so they are not exactly the same, but at least on the same order of magnitude, definitely.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask a question to clarify the vertical axes in these two charts. On the left, each of those, like that peak at 76, that's total startups, purely quantum startups across in the world.
No, that's the number of startups founded that year. So in 2018, 76 startups, new startups were founded.
So in 2022, that drop, when it drops to 10, does that just mean you only found 10 new startups?
Yeah, but also you need to consider that the paper was published in 2022, and we stopped collecting data in very early 2022. So you shouldn't take these two last two data points very seriously, because let's say that you have a stealth startup, we have no way of having data on that. I'm also open to sharing the data for this paper, so it's an open access paper. You can go and check, and you can send me an email and I can send you the data set. In total, it contains like 442 startups. So what I would recommend is you to take until this point seriously, just not the last 2 years.
Got it. Okay. And then the bar charts on the right are patents.
No, these are also number of startups.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the patent stuff. Actually, you can check the patent paper as well. It's also open access. If anyone is interested, I can share. There are some interesting findings regarding the Chinese patents and the Chinese organizations and the US organizations. But yeah, you can just, if you're interested, send me an email or write me via Discord or LinkedIn, and I can share these papers with you.
That's great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question and for clarification.
And as a note for the whole audience, we try to keep these talks conversational. So if you have,
yeah, that's great.
Oh, very much encourage you to speak up.
Yeah. Also for the online audience as well, just if you have something, just unmute yourself and ask. I see there's a chat. Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, should I continue?
Yes, that's great.
Yeah, thanks. And of course, this is something you all know, and there's even a newer version of this with more investments. And then after that newer version or the updated version, there's another updated version coming on because South Korea also announced that they will be spending additional 2 billion euros on this thing. But this is a kind of a complete list or a relatively complete list of all the national and public spending planned or ongoing on quantum technologies globally. Therefore, it kind of asks for additional interest from a societal aspect because anytime public investment is at this scale involved, then also there needs to be some regulatory oversight or let's say further regulatory oversight in how this money is being spent and what kind of assessment criteria should be applied to consider whether this was a successful policy or not. And of course, in kind of popular science and in science communication efforts, we have been seeing quantum technologies being represented, more and more in the recent years. And again, this was kind of validated the field in last year's Nobel Prize in Physics, going to the Bell inequality experiments. And if you ask the quantum flagship or the European Commission, they would say that the future is quantum. So that's why we thought that we should also be interested in this from a very societal impact perspective. So the paper is, as I said, open access. It's published early this year. So if you're interested, just go and check. We believe that it's a good paper. It's kind of readable, let's say, and we are also very open to feedback and comments. So in the paper, what we did was initially we wanted to kind of dissect this term democracy and democratization that is rather liberally used in the field without much conceptual let's say due diligence. And we wanted to discuss that democracy doesn't mean a single thing. There are different theories of democracies. And we focused on these three main, basically, theories of democracy, but there are also others. What we did was to focus on deliberative, participatory, and representative democracies. And as an additional dimension, democracy is an instrumental or intrinsic value. And we kind of discussed these via three narratives that we kind of identified as potentially hampering the democratization efforts in the field. And these are quantum technologies as an arena for geopolitics, quantum mechanics as incomprehensible, and quantum computing as a threat. So you can again check this in the paper, but what we tried to do was we tried to identify, what makes these theories of democracies distinct from each other in terms of participation. And this participation doesn't necessarily have to be a or let's say political participation in terms of elections and such, but it can be organizations, it can be companies, it can be grassroots groups. So democratic participation doesn't necessarily mean that it's just a political thing. And we try to devise this kind of a matrix to kind of identify how these theories of democracies are in practice different from each other. Of course, this is kind of arbitrary. There can be different ways of identification for different theories of democracies can be done. So just we don't want you to accept everything on face value, but we think that this was a kind of fair analysis on our end, and so the rest is up to you as the reader. And this particular thing is kind of something we're proud of, the instrumental value and intrinsic value distinction. So if if you're following a democratic model, it can be in a company, it can be in an organization, it can be in a country, whatever. Within different within different theories of democracy, there can be different actions which seem in alignment. But the same actions can be performed for different value reasons. Let's say that you are including stakeholders in the deliberation process. You can be doing this for the embetterment of the deliberation process, or you can be doing this to support the technology development and or technology adoption. Both of these look practically the same. But the value setting and the reasoning behind it might be completely different. And just to be clear, we are not saying that one value setting is more noble or better or virtuous than the other. These are just distinct modes of operation, and they can also coexist. They can also support each other. But being aware of this value setting would be beneficial, especially in terms of identifying the expectations and not expecting too much out of certain actors in the field. So the narratives. The first narrative is geopolitics, and if you just Google, quantum arms warfare, these kind of things, such headlines are rather common. You can find a lot of references to how quantum computing and quantum technologies will change warfare, will affect geopolitics. It has already been affecting geopolitics, so these kind of discussions. And one thing that you can also check is this also is in alignment with the growing geopolitical tensions. But it's not just about that. If you can track these headlines way back, you can see that even before COVID, before the Ukraine invasion, these headlines were already there. So it's not like that this is just a recent reflection of the geopolitical developments in the world. Even from the early days with Peter Shore, this geopolitical tension was implicitly and sometimes explicitly there in the field. Why? Because there is certain truth in it, right? The first quantum algorithm that got the ignition, got the spark going on, was on cybersecurity. And since then, all the quantum technologies have at least dual-use applications, and sometimes they just have a single-use applications, which is for military and defense. Now, the second narrative, I'm sure that when you see this quote, you kind of know where this is going. But if you just Google this thing, you can find more than 22 million results with different backgrounds in different color settings with different fonts. So this is a very, very, very popular quote. And why? Well, because there's also certain truth in it, right? Even from the early days, the discussions on the foundations of quantum mechanics was not settled within the field, and the Mermin approach of shut up and calculate just postponed or translated the problem or the discussions into the future. And with people like Penrose and the consciousness arguments, it's not really surprising to see that people are having a relatively difficult time in actually understanding or comprehending what quantum mechanics really is. And the final narrative is, of course, about the quantum computing as a threat to our cyber infrastructure and the internet itself. You can see sometimes certain narratives overlap, and here you can see the Chinese threats in the quantum era. Well, also there are US threats in the quantum era to the entire infrastructure of the internet, because if a major vulnerability exists in the infrastructure will become much more useless, let's say, or much less useful, regardless of this vulnerabilities coming from the US side or the Chinese side or the European side. And again, why? Just going back to the Peter Shor's algorithm and all the new developments, there is a certain expectation that at least in a couple of decades, there will most probably be a device that is capable of making all the current RSA and elliptic curve cryptography kind of obsolete. So the three narratives are quantum technologies as an arena for geopolitics, quantum mechanics as incomprehensible, quantum computing as a threat. And what we kind of discuss in the paper is overemphasizing these narratives create and or strengthen exclusionary practices and result in visionary lacking mechanisms often argued on the grounds of being fast. And visions of the future and demands of certain stakeholders are prioritized, while the visions and demands from other stakeholders are suppressed. And path dependencies and rush decisions have their associated costs too. And just to give you an example for this, maybe you remember this entire debacle back in 2020. The UK government basically decided to overhaul their entire infrastructure because they previously bought equipment from Huawei, and this was expected to cost more than £2 billion. And one can clearly argue that, okay, this was a decision that didn't take certain stakeholders, in this case cybersecurity stakeholders, seriously when it was being made. So exclusion of certain stakeholders, which can be sometimes defense stakeholders as well, has or sometimes have an associated cost in the future. So what kind of alternatives can we talk about regarding these narratives? So for the arena for geopolitics, we can accept that the world consists of more than just hegemonic powers and avoid protectionisms, or more, correctly, over-protectionisms, because certain amount of protectionism might be justified in any case. And we can focus on civilian uses related to sustainable development goals instead of military uses related to national security prioritizations. And quantum mechanics is incomprehensible. Well, Feynman's quote should only be used within its proper context and not to implicate that people cannot understand quantum mechanics. And we have seen, and also I probably used this quote before, in outreach activities. If you start an outreach activity by saying that, okay, I will talk to you about something, but you will not understand it, and that's all right because nobody understands it, that's not very constructive in terms of outreach, right? So we should be more careful about, what kind of narrative we are trying to push here. And one argument or one alternative narrative there is quantum technologies needs to become a normal and even mundane technology, and any pseudoscience should be criticized. And what do I say by a normal technology? Here is my phone. A lot of people use these devices daily, and they don't know what's going on with these. They don't know network theory, they don't know signals and processing, but they still use it. And if you say that, okay, this is a magical device, people will just laugh at you, because it's not. They know, they kind of normalized it in their lives. And something like this can happen for quantum technologies and should happen if we are aiming for a more democratized field in the future. And finally, quantum computing as a threat. We can focus on ways to constructively deal with threats, such as the NIST process, and there's already a guideline from the US and also from Germany and probably UK in terms of this migration to post-quantum cryptography. You can agree or not, that's entirely another debate. Some people say that post-quantum cryptography will not cut it. But yeah, so there are constructively, dealing with these threat arguments. and presenting realistic timelines and not only showing the worst case scenarios would also help. By the way, just as a clarification, we don't say that in the paper or ever that these narratives are false. Actually, these narratives are rather useful in certain cases, and they are definitely there for a reason. But focusing too much and emphasizing too strongly these narratives has a kind of an hampering effect on the democratization of this field. And one of the main reasons is that it creates this justification for exclusion of certain stakeholders, or let's say deprioritization of certain stakeholders. And you can also argue, you can also create cases where this is entirely justified. But again, the idea of the paper is not to take sides, but to highlight these kind of points of conflict in different narratives and their relation to the concept of democratization and actual efforts of democratization in the field. So, discussion and conclusion. Having a clear understanding of in which context the term democratization is located and used allows both developers, practitioners of policy actions like companies, public institutions, NGOs, a ground on which they can formulate their aims, goals, and visions more clearly, let's say, phasing out some narratives and replacing them with more constructive ones that focus on solutions and realistic timelines might be beneficial for democratization efforts. And normalization of quantum mechanics and quantum technologies would potentially result in more inclusive environment, or let's say a more inclusive narrative structure. And just providing access to either the technology or the products of it is a necessary condition, but it's not a sufficient condition for democratization, because access does not guarantee agency. And there needs to be stakeholder engagement and empowerment to support the democratization efforts. And now some advertisements. There is the Center for Quantum and Society in Netherlands. I would strongly recommend you to check what they have been up to, because the issue in Netherlands is that they have this national program, but a certain amount, like the 5% of the national budget, is dedicated to ethics and societal impact actions. So they have been doing a lot of kind of novel things in the Netherlands. So I would strongly recommend you to check what's going on there. And in Karlsruhe, we have been organizing this series of events called Responsible Quantum Technologies. Both of the events are on our YouTube channel as well, and you can just go and check. And this is for the actually this month. So we will have the third iteration of this event this month in the 27th and 28th of July in Karlsruhe, Germany. So if by any chance you will be in Germany or Karlsruhe, just come and join. But if not, you can also join online via this QR code, or just send me an email and I can share the form with you. And I would like to thank you for your attention. And,
Thanks, Zeki, for a great talk.